The Alfie Whattam podcast.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 98 of the Alfie Whattam Technology Podcast, the show where we talk about what's happening in the world of technology, with tech news, the future, innovations, products, and so on and so forth. Today in the studio, I've got a couple of guests who are engineering leaders, technology directors, and so on and so forth. Let's go around the table, get everybody's background. Andy, do you want to kick us off, mate?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Andy. I'm the tech director at a digital product agency called Tangent. We create enterprise solutions for the likes of SAP and Regis. I've been working in software engineering now for 20 years and like to think of myself as a developer, but these days more of a solutions architect.
Okay, awesome, mate. And Tangent, what sort of tech stack are you guys working with?
Currently, we kind of adopt a Jamstack approach.
Okay.
We create decoupled front ends with React and Next. Microservice architectures mainly using .NET Core and Python, but we've dabbled with a bit of Go recently.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's probably summarizes it.
That is a variety, you know, .NET, Go, Python, React. That is very much a good combination. But awesome. Okay, cool. Nice to hear. Jess, do you want to kick us off? What's your story? Who are you, please? And what's your background?
Yeah, so I'm Jess. I'm currently an engineering manager at Ziglu. So we currently have a financial app focusing on cryptocurrency at the moment. So I manage quite a large team at the moment. We mainly use Golang for backend. We use React and JavaScript, TypeScript for front end. Previous to Ziglu, I was at Rightmove. Rightmove, I did software engineering for a number of years. And I was quite big on helping the women in tech community, focus on a lot of events and mentoring young women getting into tech. So yeah, that's a big passion of mine outside software engineering.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And of course, we have Michael. Michael, what's your story? What's your background? What's your tech stack? Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Mike Banner. So I'm an engineering manager at Moonpig. So started my career off as a software developer. Been in the industry for just over a decade. Worked for numerous companies prior to Moonpig, and just kind of naturally fell into sort of like people management and like seeing people improve, and just like really passionate about sort of like building people up in their careers and that kind of thing. And yeah, so currently working at Moonpig, been there for 1.5 years, and just been working on like a massive like re-platforming that we've been doing. So been quite a challenge.
Awesome. And what kind of code, what kind of stack, what are you working with?
It's so my kind of stuff, the domains that I work in is predominantly .NET, so it's like backends, AWS, microservices, that kind of thing. But then on the website, it's like React, Next.js.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So you're all using React. That's cool to see. And then we've got some .NET, we've got some Go, we've got some Python, we've got some snake wrangling, we've got all kinds of stuff happening. That's cool. There's a great C# .NET joke. I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, but why did the .NET developer need to wear glasses?
Because you couldn't see sharp.
Correct.
I've heard that one before.
I know, I'm sure you have. It's, I'm allowed to. Now that I'm a dad, I can say that as a dad joke, can't I? Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, everyone, and it'd be good to get your perspectives, your point of views into what's happening in the world of tech. So first thing I wanted to talk about and show you today is Meta have partnered up with Ray-Ban. This has been happening for a little while now. However, the product hadn't quite caught on as much as some people had hoped. But from speaking with some contacts I know high up at Meta, this is something that they're going to be really trying to push over in 2023, largely because VR has obviously not really, gone to plan in terms of the mass adoption. So they're starting to see AR as the route to VR, which makes sense. It's less intrusive. It's a little bit easier. I'm already wearing glasses. If I could just have a little, ping of notifications, directions, etc., that would be very, very cool. But Meta's product and entry into this space. Let me show you a quick clip of what they've released. It's been out for a little while, like I say, but they're going to start to push it a lot more this year. And then we'll have a chat about what you think, if it's good, if it's bad, if it's anything in between. If you're listening on audio, now is the time to turn on video to watch the clip. There we have a lady walking down the street, some cool sunglasses on, and then you can just tap a little button and it will take a picture of them instantly on your stories. I believe that's why they're called the Meta Stories for Instagram. That's the stories. It's quite spontaneous. Bunch of skateboarders. I don't see that happening day to day, but you can do video as well. So this is just video and also audio there, so she can talk using Siri or whatever the meta version is, and then that will obviously start recording. So there's no directions, there's no text alerts popping up. It's not quite the vision of Google Glass, what they all hoped that to be, a long time ago. This is a little bit more basic, but it's starting to become mainstream. AR is not something that we're going to be talking about as an idea. It's now something that we're going to be talking about as a reality. Some of the biggest tech companies in the world are releasing actual hardware and products around this. What are your takes on this? Do you think this is a flop? If it's something that's quite interesting and could be built upon to make it even better? Andy, what's your point of view?
Glad you started with me. I was hoping to coin off everyone else's opinion. As you mentioned, Google Glass didn't exactly land well. Wasn't a success. I kind of feel that there's probably space for it in the market. That raises lots of privacy issues. We've seen people fail that are probably bigger than Ray-Ban and Meta combined. So I think they've probably got their work cut out. And the subject of AR, like that no doubt will become part of our day-to-day lives. I think when you look at the future of driverless cars and what the 25th hour, as it's been dubbed back, is the hour we spend, or a lot of people spend driving, what that could be used for from an entertainment perspective.
Sure.
I think AR could be really interesting in that space. But personal wearables, and I don't know. I'd be interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite primitive at the moment, but maybe that's enough for people to want to use it. I mean, you already take pictures, you already take videos. If you could just beep and then it's done, then more convenient, isn't it? And that sort of thing. Jess, what do you think when you see the Meta Ray-Ban stories?
Do you know what? I quite like this idea. I think there's a really big space for content creators and influencers right now, especially within Meta. You've got all the people who do reels and live videos and stuff like that, and it's a big way people are making money at the moment. So if people know they can make more money from having this wearable, and they can just record their daily lives as they go about, and get more followers, gain a bigger audience, I think a lot of influencers and content creators may potentially be quite interested in this.
Yeah, I mean, from a content creation perspective, it's like the perfect tool. You don't have to carry around a camera. It's just always on your face, and you just press a button or say the magic words, and then boom, someone's on video, which might be a bad thing as well if you think about it, but we can talk about that. What's your take, Mike, when you see these glasses?
Kind of like takes me back to my childhood, so it's almost like a spy gadget kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like camera on your face. It's an interesting one. I didn't really think of it from like the kind of like creator kind of perspective. I was kind of just thinking along the lines of like it's not really something that I personally use myself.
Sure.
But like I'm kind of just use my phone for taking videos and that kind of thing. I think the main thing for me it's around like the privacy thing, or like just people being aware that other people are wearing these kind of wearables and that kind of thing. And I think they probably got like a niche element within the market, because like I've done stuff with the police in the past, and I think these kind of wearables are quite useful, because obviously they wear like body cams and that kind of thing. I'm just thinking, could it provide them with almost like a stepping stone to using this technology for something a bit more, I don't know, some interesting purposes. Don't really know.
It's a good point about the privacy concern. So the way that they've addressed this is they've got a little light on it.
Yeah.
However, you can very easily just take a Sharpie and get rid of that if you wanted to. So we could have a world very soon where everyone's filming each other and taking pictures of each other and live streaming everything, and nobody's of the wiser that it's happening. And these aren't just sunglasses. You can get prescription versions of these as well, I believe. Right now, it probably is a bit obvious. You've got cameras and that sort of thing, but as they get smaller and smaller and smaller and less invasive, then the privacy issue might become more apparent. Do you think, Jess, if we start with yourself, do you think there's a risk, a concern of this backfiring if people are videoing each other without them knowing about it, or do you think that might just be like a small situation?
Yeah, it's a funny one because obviously if you're using this wearable, you're going to be potentially videoing every single thing. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work with memory and stuff like that, but you're potentially walking around and videoing everything you see. Whereas when someone's videoing on their phone, it's kind of a bit more obvious. If you don't want to be in a shot, you move out the way. So yeah, potentially there could be a lot of concerns, I guess, raised by people who aren't, aware of what content creation is, or not really into that kind of stuff. That could raise some potential.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, imagine if you were walking around with your phone filming everything. Like, most people would be like, no, I don't want that. But with this, it's, if you have the thing blacked out, it's almost impossible to see. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. What do you think, Andy, when it comes to the privacy side of it?
I think privacy is all about consent, and when you're an adult and you're a consenting adult, it's fine. But if you're a child, then there's concerns raised there, and the use of these in schools or in gyms or in locker rooms or changing rooms, I think will raise serious concerns for a lot of people.
That'll be a headline, won't it, in like a few months? Like
Guarantee it.
Absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, what about like where this goes? Because I don't know if I would get these right now. They're a little bit basic for me, but when you start adding Google Maps on these, and it has a little arrow telling you where to go, you get a little text message, it pops up, you got the time in the corner, you got the weather in the corner, it's going to rain, you get a call, you can do all different types of things. Basically the vision of Google Glass. When that becomes a thing, because we're starting to head in that direction, that tech was way too early, obviously. But when we start getting to the point where that is now a thing, could you see this becoming mainstream, changing the world? We went from computers to laptops to iPads and phones to watches, and then they'll be on our face, and then who knows, inside us with the Neuralink at some point. But prior to that, do you see this becoming like a mainstream technology which everybody is using, like a phone perhaps? What do you think, Mike, if you had to place a bet?
I wouldn't say everybody. I feel like it's got its kind of niche purpose. Like, I think like one of the main things for me is around like the safety element of it as well. So like, obviously, I imagine like the clever people behind these bits of technology are thinking about this like quite a lot. But it's around like if you're kind of displaying all that information on like your glasses and stuff, making sure that people are aware of the surroundings. Because like you look at like Google Maps, where they've got like the live capability where you can point around and see your surroundings and that kind of thing. And if I remember rightly, they kind of like disable that feature if you are moving, to make sure that you're just not walking out into a road because you're too focused on like the screen. Point. And I think there's definitely elements of like the kind of like the safety element there of the users. But as I say, I think it's definitely got like a kind of like niche within the place, and it's probably not for everybody. I wouldn't like say it's something that people would adopt as sort of ubiquitously as like the mobiles and that kind of thing.
Okay, so you don't think it will replace the phone, but you think a large percentage of people will still go for it. But
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, what do you think, Jess?
I think a big advantage of this a big selling point of this is going to be the convenience of it. Like when you go on holiday, not a lot of people want to be carrying their phones around now, and you know you're afraid when you're in new places, you don't want your phone snatched, you don't want to lose your phone somewhere. So if you're wearing something that's physically attached to you, there's a lot less likeliness that you're going to lose this object or someone's going to take it from you. So potentially it could be a really good selling point of the convenience. Yeah,
and people will always pay for convenience, won't they? Like that's why Uber Eats, Deliveroo, etc. exist. I mean, you can make that food yourself, or you can press a button and it's there. So, and from your side, Andy, do you see this becoming mainstream worldwide, or do you think it will stay small?
I think there's a niche use cases for it. The input's an interesting point. You heard this when voice came out, and everyone was like, "Voice is going to change the world." But then you don't hear many people talking to themselves in their phone because still not socially acceptable. It's a little bit weird, right? I'm sure that people would do. And it'll be interesting to see how input works into this. Whether voice is enabled on it, it'll be voice commands to start off with. One interesting use case, though, I do think that is really worth highlighting is probably the accessibility side of it. So with Google Maps, and if you're visually impaired, finding directions used to be impossible. Now you can follow directions. You can listen to the phone. It says turn left, turn right. It helps you follow where you're going. Even with Street View, you can get an AI description of what the camera's looking at. I think this is could be really open up the accessibility market for people. Could have a lot of use cases there.
Which is like a massive thing which I think more and more companies are going to be focusing on this year and beyond, because a lot of the time companies have gone, look, that's such a small part of the market, we're just not going to do anything about it. But they've come to realize that even if it just does impact, you know, a small-ish group of people, that can also have an impact on the other customers as well. An example being, you know, it reading out, because I listen to that, even I might be lazy or something, but I use Siri 20-30 times a day or something, and I often use it more in a day than I do my thumbs when typing and stuff, which is quite interesting. I guess the price for these, if we had to go around, they're not crazy, but they're not cheap either. If you had to ballpark, what would you say, Andy?
$350.
Okay. What would you say?
I'm going to say about $2,000.
$2,000. Okay, you think they're very pricey?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
Potentially.
I think they're probably like $299.
$299.
Yeah.
Okay. You two are very close. It's they're £300. Okay. So when they first were released, they, I believe, when they were like in the early days, they were a lot more money than that. So you were more accurate there, Jess. But the Google Glass isn't actually dead. They've just got now like an enterprise edition for Google Glass, and those are closer to that price point that you mentioned there. I think that the enterprise ones are used for, let's say you work in a warehouse and you have like a list of tasks that's always there, like showing you what to do. Whereas they're not very pretty, the Google Glass ones. Whereas these are Ray-Bans. They're cool. Everyone likes to wear that sort of thing. But anyway, AR, something definitely to focus on a lot more for this year, and only going to continue to accelerate and innovate and get smaller and bigger. And I think what's going to be really, really interesting is when we start to get VR on something this small, because right now VR is so clunky and big and chunky. I haven't even tried an Oculus or whatever, but it's like having a huge computer strapped to your face. But when you've got that capability inside something this thin, this small, then that's when the world changes, basically. Okay, cool. Next thing I wanted to go over was the emergence of robotic prosthetics. Prosthetics, I can pronounce it. Somebody tweeted this clip to me. If you have clips that you want us to cover on the show, please tweet them to me. My Twitter thing will be on the screen at the moment. This is showing essentially an innovation which has been worked on for a long time, but it's starting to get a lot better, and very, very soon we'll be at the point where people with this tech will have an advantage to people that don't have this tech. So the people that are getting this for accessibility purposes will be more capable than the people that don't have this. Let me show you a clip. If you're listening on audio, please turn on the video. This is a lady attaching a robotic arm to herself, which can be controlled through her thoughts. She thinks open hand, she thinks closed finger, she thinks open the pinky, and it does that as a result. All you have to do is think, and it operates the same way that a human hand would. She can grab grapes, she can do all different types of tasks that a regularly person with two arms would be able to do. Obviously, this is just one example on the arm, but when you have legs, when you have eyes, hearts, etc. I think a push-up needs some work, but that's okay. And typing as well, obviously the most important task of the century. So robotic prosthetics, am I pronouncing that right? I'm terrible at pronouncing stuff. Really interesting space. What are your views on this, Mike? When you see this clip, what comes to mind? What do you think?
I'm impressed. I think the main thing that stands out is the fine motor skills that they've managed to get. It's like the fact that they can like sort of pick up like an individual like jelly bean or grape, whatever it was on the video. Yeah, it's just quite impressive. Like, obviously I haven't looked into it. I'd be quite keen to understand how they managed to sort of do that, because you say it's like managed by the thought. I'm assuming it's like related to like sensing the movements of like tendons or something in the arm. Yeah,
the electromagnetic tendons, all of that.
But it's very impressive. I think it's going to be like a game changer for people who've obviously like missing limbs and stuff. And
yes, as
you say, that'll kind of like lead on to like sort of like missing legs and that kind of things. It'd be really interesting to see how they can sort of enable people to kind of move forward with that.
That was an arm, but there are other body parts already being released and used and sold and whatnot. What's your point of view, Jess, when you see that clip?
Yeah, I think it's definitely very interesting. Obviously, there's been a lot in the robotics scene in the past few years, and to be able to produce something like this, which is going to be a big enabler for a lot of people being able to, achieve more or do more in their everyday life that maybe they struggled with a bit before. I think it's definitely going to be life-changing. I really look forward to seeing where something like this goes and how it can help people.
Yeah. And what's your take, Andy?
It's a powerful video, isn't it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing to see what technology, how it's enabling people and being used for good. I hope it's used and governed correctly. At South by Southwest last year, we heard an interesting threat emergence talk that talked about prosthetics and actually hearts and how it opens up new attack vectors and potential new routes for exploitation. Like, an emerging threat could be a terrorist could press a button and turn everyone's heart off within a certain radius, for example. Yeah. So I guess the security side of those prosthetics, hope I said that right too.
Yeah.
Should be a big concern of the manufacturers, but it's definitely for the good.
But where I see this going is if this keeps getting better and better and better, eventually you're going to want to have them because you're going to have an arm which can reach across the room and grab a glass of water. You're going to have legs where you can run 50 miles per hour and jump over huge, heights. And you're going to have eyes where you can zoom in and live stream what you're seeing, and then hearts. And obviously these are, very complex problems which are going to be worked on a step at a time. But people are going to want to become cyborgs and upgrade. And perhaps it's not there at the moment, obviously, but we're already cyborgs in some respect if you have a hearing aid, or if you the new AirPods, they have like a noise cancelling mode, which is really, really interesting, and that is great for it's adapting and changing the human experience through technology. What are your thoughts on like people wanting to get this? Because in like 5-10 years, people are going to want to be signing up to get this sort of stuff. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where, where do we stop? Where do we put the limit on who can have these? And, like where the prosthetics go themselves. Like obviously we've got arms and legs and those kind of things at the moment, but to what extent, what else is going to be produced off the back of this? And, I think, it's about being careful into who is allowed to purchase these, and it's definitely a big worry, as well as a great thing that they're doing. Yeah,
but it could be very dystopian. You could have somebody walking down the street with 10 arms and guns strapped to each of them. So I don't know if there should be a who decides who gets this, but to begin with, it will probably be rich people that have this upgrade, because it was probably going to cost a lot of money. We'll talk about the price in a second, but it's not cheap. But eventually that will come down and down and down, and then people will use them. What about from your side, Andy? What do you think about how this could become an upgrade to the human experience?
I guess you probably have to be missing a limb at the moment to need a prosthetic.
You need to be injured in war or born without a limb.
So I think that's going to limit the market.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be able to open the jar of jam without asking my wife to do it, but I'm not going to chop my arm off and swap it with a prosthetic to do it.
Would you get a third one though? Like if someone said, you can attach one to your spine and then boom.
Well, I don't know. I guess that this is the thing, right? It's body modifications, and there's going to be risk involved with that. And I don't think that's probably a realistic market for it straight away. I think to start off with, you're right. It's for people that need support with missing limbs.
Yeah.
It does raise a lot of interesting questions, I guess. You've had things in the Olympics recently around gender fluidity and competition, and how would competitive sports work?
That's a great question.
If you've got bionic legs,
you'll be the fastest person in the world, won't you?
Yeah. So I think it will raise a lot of interesting questions, but I won't be rushing out to get one. I don't think.
Okay. And what's your take, Mike, on people wanting to get these as like an upgrade? Would you be game for that, or what do you think?
Personally, I wouldn't. I feel like it's something that should be like heavily regulated.
Sure.
As I guess to like both Andy and Jess's points there, it's something which is, if used for good, is to kind of like enable people who are like in like an unfortunate situation, they're missing a limb, or even if you go as far as like, I don't know, doing things like replacing the hearing and like ears and whatever. But I feel like it shouldn't just be something like just because you've got money, you can kind of augment your body with additional body parts just to kind of like make you more powerful. Because it kind of goes back to like something I seen years ago around sort of like exoskeletons and stuff where you can like people in warehouses, you can use them to like lift massive weights and that kind of thing, which it's got its purpose. And I think when you're going down the route of like you were saying, Andy, of like modifying like the human body to do things, I think that it needs to have like a certain purpose. And I think for now that definitely is around like a medical reason, or just to enable somebody who's like born with like a physical disability or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, who would pay for this? Would it be on the national health care? Would it be
it's a good question.
A private thing? This opens up questions of religious questions. Should we be certain people might not want to get involved in upgrading their I don't know if upgrade is the right word, but I guess it probably is if you're taking something and making it better using technology. And then is there certain things which should be off limits? The heart, the mind, etc., etc. You mentioned about the hacking scenario. I think that's a really, really good point, Andy. I can see that being a headline. The North Korea hacks the president's heart or something and turns it off. I mean, could that be a cyber risk? Biohacking. Do you think that could become a thing?
It certainly needs to be considered. I think if you're producing these prosthetics for people, you probably want to think about emerging threats. You can't just blindly go into creating any tech without considering security as an aspect. So I generally think that people that are probably producing these are thinking about emerging threats and how people could take advantage of them. If not, they wouldn't be responsible manufacturers.
Would you feel scared, Jess, around someone hacking your arms and then taking over control over your body?
Yeah, I think I honestly would. I mean, it's in all the movies, all the TV shows where you get these robots that go AWOL and stuff. So why wouldn't it happen? Why couldn't it potentially happen to our hands and legs? Yeah.
And would you be scared as well? Or would you be like, nah, let's do it?
It's definitely a scary prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, would you... I mean, it's hard to say would you get this because there's so many different parts. You've got the arms, you've got the legs, you've got the eyes, you've got everything, right? But would you be, if Apple released the arm, or the Microsoft released their next generation legs, would you if it was a mainstream big tech company and you go into the Apple store and it's a 2-hour upgrade and surgery, and then you come out of it and then suddenly you're superhuman, would you if it was the right price point, would you be open to that idea? What do you think?
I feel if I was in a situation where I did need something like that, then potentially I think that's where it might go. So like obviously you've got like big companies who are researching this kind of thing, but it probably will get to that point where there's a lot of things on the market and it's kind of come down to you go in and shop for the one which like best fits your needs.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one.
Would you upgrade, Jess, or you want to stay completely human?
I think I would stay completely human, but I would be interested in seeing how many people uptake this and where it goes. And you never know if a few years with this all goes good, then I might be interested.
Could I sign you up, Andy, or are you know?
I think if I had an accident and I needed it, yes, but I wouldn't go out and swap like my hands for robotic hands, because I don't think you have the same feeling or touch or the human aspects that you don't get with computer. You might have superhuman strength, but you're going to be sacrificing quite a lot, I think, for that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if the people that don't upgrade get left behind, though, because if they're it's a competitive world, and if two people apply for a job and one of them can lift a huge box and one of them can only lift normal boxes, who they're going to hire, who they're going to pick. So
hello, super quick video just to say I would love to give you a free copy of my new report, How to Hire Top Software Engineers. So my team has surveyed almost 5,000 software engineers across the United Kingdom, and their responses reveal simple steps which you can take to hire the best software developers on the market. This report is essential reading for all technology leaders across the UK. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download your free copy now, or go to welovealpha.com/hiring insights to download your free PDF.
It'll be interesting to see how this bleeds into other areas of the world, but definitely a bit of a crazy topic. Price-wise, I mean, this is such a crazy number that you wouldn't have any idea really, but if I said over or under 100 grand, what would you say?
Over.
What would you say?
Over.
Over.
It's actually, so for 2 arms, it's 100 grand. So 50 grand an arm at the moment. It's in pounds, but obviously that price is going to come down, and you need to be a very rich, wounded war veteran to get that at the moment, unless you have some kind of grant or something. But if that comes down to the point where it's not a huge convenience for somebody to do, then who knows? Maybe we'll be half cyborgs in 20, 30 years. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So the last piece of news that I was keen to discuss is very much into the future. It's into the world of space technology. So this is Spaceship Neptune. This is a concept which is set to be scheduled from late next year, and it will give everyday people the opportunity to go into space. And become astronauts. That would be a great little thing to have on your LinkedIn tagline, astronaut. That would be very, very cool. Let me show you a clip of it. Please turn on video if you're just listening to the episode, and then we'll get your perspectives. Here is basically it's a huge balloon, like a hot air balloon, which lifts a capsule into the air, into space. And in that capsule, it has live you can live stream. It's got all the phone data. It's got Wi-Fi, etc. You have a nice meal up there. I think you're up there for a couple of hours. You get the incredible view, which everyone obviously would love to have in their lifetimes. And you have a fine dining experience. You can hang out with a crew on board. I believe there's only one person up there with you that knows how to operate it, so that's quite scary if they had a heart attack or something. Give them a robotic heart just in case. And yeah, obviously a life-changing experience for people that are able to do that. That is Spaceship Neptune, potentially the future of space travel. Jess, what's your perspective when you see that? Is that something that you're excited about? Would you want to do it? What's your point of view?
I think it's really amazing to be able to have the opportunity in your lifetime to do something like that. I think I would be one of those people who's missed safety and waits a bit for everyone to jump the crowd first. And if I find it safe enough, then yeah, I would definitely be down to go. But yeah, definitely something to watch out for, I think.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike? What's your point of view on this?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's something I'll definitely look into.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it's not just something which is available for the super rich.
Yeah.
Which is quite appealing. So yeah.
Okay. Yourself?
You had me at fine dining.
Not in space.
No, that does look amazing. I think the views would be incredible. Like, be such a fantastic opportunity and like experience of a lifetime.
Yeah,
certainly be interested.
Okay. So flights are scheduled to start from late 2024. Obviously, it seems I don't know the details around this, but it seems safer than like going up in a SpaceX rocket, which could blow up at any minute. I'm sure the thing is, some of these are probably going to go wrong. Like we're gonna have stories of these crashing, balloons bursting, whatever happens, right? So there's always a risk. It's space at the end of the day. But if you had a free ticket, would you? I don't have a free ticket for you right now, but if I said, hey, here's some free tickets, we're all going to go up to space, would you say yes? Would you say no? What would you say, Jess?
Tricky one. Do you know what? If it was a free ticket, I always see things as everything happens for a reason, and I would probably be like, yeah, fine, I'll go. Yeah,
I think I probably would as well. It's the kind of thing where if you said no, you'd regret it afterwards, and you'd be like, oh, I could be in space right now, but who knows? Would you take a free ticket, Andy?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks wow. It's such an amazing opportunity. I know that Jeff Bezos is trying to be commercialize space tourism, and it's a fascinating area. It just seems like such a distant dream as a child, like looking at like NASA and International Space Station. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'd definitely jump at the chance.
Cool. And Mike, would you take a free ticket or would you say no?
100%. I think the main thing for me would just be around like the safety element.
Yeah.
Like for me, I personally just want to know what would happen if things did go wrong, just in case.
Would you freak out if you were up there and something happened?
Oh yeah.
I think I would.
No doubt.
I mean, what can you do? You can't parachute out of there. I mean, you're up there. So it's the kind of thing where you kind of just need to give away control. You're like, right, I'm going up, right? My life is in your hands. Please, Mr. Bezos, don't let me down, sort of thing. It's not free, obviously. It is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to perhaps what space travel was to begin with. Because at first you were talking, like hundreds of millions per astronaut going up. Now you can be an astronaut for it's 125 grand for a 6-hour trip. To begin with, and then that price obviously will come down as economies of scale happen. 125 grand for 6 hours. Would you? I mean, if you had the money, do you think that's worth it?
I don't have the money.
I know, but if you had the money,
Yeah, I suppose if money was no object,
yeah,
it was, as I said before, it's a good experience. But I think obviously that's going to be a limiting factor for most people.
sure, yeah. If you had the money, would that be something that you'd splurge on?
I would. It's a lot of money still,
Of course.
regardless. Yeah, I feel like it could be spent on better things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good chance.
But it's not, most people spend more than that on the house, and
Yeah.
and, so I mean, I know it's only 6 hours, and the house is for a
Yeah.
lot longer than that, right? But I mean, that is probably the most life-changing experience that you can have, apart from like having kids or something. Going into space, that would be
Just as expensive.
Yeah, but well, I know maybe kids are more expensive, who knows? But would you take that, Jess? 125 Gs for 6 hours?
Yeah, I think if I had the money, it's a life-changing experience. Why not?
Yeah, it's interesting, because out of all the technologies which are exploding and getting better and better, it almost seems like space is perhaps like the most fascinating of them all, like the final frontier, right? It's the ultimate like goal and vision, and if we're able to have in our lifetimes the opportunity to go into space, or maybe even go to Mars, who knows if that would become a thing. The Mars one is very interesting because it's basically Elon and NASA trying to get there. I don't really know if there's many other people involved in that mission at the moment. The theory, like Elon's grand theory, is you've got SpaceX to get us there. You've got Teslas, because there's no gas on Mars. You need the sun, and you had Solar City to collect the energy and then power the Teslas. And then he has the Boring Company to dig tunnels, because it's really hot up there. You can't just walk around and get a suntan. You need to kind of stay underground and stay in close areas. The difference between Spaceship Neptune and Mars is with Spaceship Neptune, it's 6 hours. You come up and then you come down, and then you're hacking in the afternoon and having dinner, right? With Mars, you're not coming back. Like, if the first people that go there, perhaps in our lifetime, they're going to die on Mars, and it's probably not going to be a great experience as well. You're probably going to be living in a tunnel. You're probably going to be eating terrible food, with a bunch of people that are going to die at any given point. Anything could go wrong. You're never going to return. So that's a very different type of space travel as opposed to this luxury type. But would you all be up for it? If you had a free ticket to Mars, if Elon walked in the room and said, "Look, let's get you there, let's do it." What would you say, Andy? Would you be in for that?
I don't think so. No, the 6-hour trip to
That'd be enough for you.
the edge of the atmosphere is probably enough for me. But that's a commitment, a lifelong commitment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that would be enough to make me out.
Yeah. What would you say, Jess?
Yeah, I think it would be a no from me. There's enough to do on Earth right here, so I'm happy where I am.
Yeah. And yourself?
Similar. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite happy to stay at home with the family.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you would be in the history books for, right? Like one of the first pioneers there. But I mean, you'd never be able to read those history books because you'd just be in a tunnel somewhere. Yeah, I know, crazy to see where space is happening. Well, one thing that is very interesting about the innovations in this area, and we were doing a podcast the other week about this, is with the emergence of like Boston Dynamics, like the robots are getting better and better. It's likely that the first time we visit Mars, we won't do it with people. We'll send robots up there. We'll send 3D printers, which will print all the houses, all the components, and create a city for us. And then by the time we get there, we've got infrastructure in place and that sort of thing. If it was a little bit more, we're talking, 20, 30 years after the setup, I'm pulling numbers out the air obviously here, but if we had a situation where you could go there and you could have an amazing experience and you could come back, there's still a risk involved. Would you be more up for that sort of thing, or is it still not of interest? What would your point of view be?
I guess it's the time frames and getting there and back, right? It's a fair few light years away, I guess.
Well, there's a window as well. So I think it's once every 6 months, I believe, or so. That's when the planets are close enough to do the traveling. So yeah, it would be like you wouldn't be able to leave whenever you wanted. There'd be a return ticket, and that might get pushed out a couple of years, depending on what happens. But would you be game for it in your old age when perhaps this is a little bit easier to do?
Maybe in my old age, yeah. Depends on grandchildren and what's going on here. It also depends on the state of the planet, right? 20, 30 years here, let's see what's left of Earth by that point. If we continue going on the route we are now, we might all be queuing up to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, there is the argument that why are we spending all this money doing this when we should be doing it on Earth to fix Earth? But at the same time, if Earth is at risk of nuclear war or whatever, with obvious events that are happening, we kind of need to get people onto different planets to avoid the risk of us all going to zero. Would you sign up to a free return ticket to a more luxurious Mars, Jess?
I think if I was at the point in my life where I felt like I'd visited enough countries here, been to enough places, I would probably take the risk and be like, you know what, let's do it. It's a return trip. Whatever happens.
Yeah. What about yourself?
I guess it depends if like Mars offered something different to Earth other than like a barren landscape with a city built in underground. It's I guess at the minute the thought of it doesn't really excite me that much. Obviously, you go to space and everything else, but with the was it Neptune? Have you just shown us there?
Spaceship
like
Neptune.
That seems enough to me for now. But again, like Andy was saying, it just comes down to like what the state of the planet's in. Are things going downhill even more, and does that offer like better prospects? Yeah.
Interesting. Well, look, I mean, it's been fascinating to talk with you about, I suppose, what's happening in the world of technology. For the rest of the pod, let's turn it slightly different to, I suppose, more advice and recommendations, because we've talked about the future, but if we focus on the present a little bit more, you are all experienced technology and engineering leaders. You have been in this space for a while, and you've built great projects and teams and everything in between. A lot of people watching the show are perhaps starting out their careers. They are in the early days of their development journeys. It'd be good to get your perspectives and advice for those people, kind of top tips for people that are looking to start out their career. Let's start right at the early stages, right? So for the junior developers, the people that are just getting into this, what will kind of be your kind of biggest advice for those people? If you could look back on your earlier selves, what do you wish you knew now, which you didn't back then? What would you say, Mike?
Probably start off in AI.
Yeah.
And like machine learning and that kind of thing. I think just the way the industry is going as a whole.
Yeah.
Like the amount of change that we've seen over the last couple of years is just immense.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a whole conversation around like where AI is going and how it's going to like shape the industry moving forward. But I think having like a really good awareness of that and how it's going to like change the landscape is, I know it's kind of like a broad topic, but I think just sort of understanding like how that can sort of help your career and everything else is quite important.
Got an episode coming out next week on GPT and DALL-E, and that's certainly probably in my opinion the most exciting space if you are starting out, certainly in terms of what's going to be built on top of this, because the internet came along, so much was built on top of that, social media came along, so much was built on top of that, and crypto as well, and now with AI, that what's going to be built, the companies, everything that's going to happen on top of that layer, oh my god, it's going to change everything. I mean, it already has. I mean, it's insane. GPT to me was like the biggest innovation since the iPhone, because it was, and I know it's not perfect, it's definitely got a lot of work, but it's the first time I saw something in a long time and went, whoa, what the hell is this? This is insane. What would your advice be, Jess, apart from getting involved in AI, machine learning? What else would you recommend juniors to do?
Yep. So tech is always changing, and we know that just from what we've seen in a few years. So I would take the chance while you're a junior developer and pivot around different areas of tech. Find out whether you like AI, machine learning, back end, front end, whatever it is you want to do. Different types of industries, and don't always be afraid if you see a job description that you feel like, okay, do you know what, I kind of like the sound of 70% of this, but 30% of this I have no idea what I would be doing. Just go for it. Like, have a go, take a chance, and if you like it, well done. If you don't, then the technology industry is so huge, you can just move on back to something you enjoy more,
Yeah.
or pivot again. And I think that's what technology is all about.
There's definitely a benefit, right, in learning, especially in the early days, as many different types of languages and paths as possible. Because if you just stick with something and you go, look, I am a Angular developer, and then React comes out, and then you're like, well, you need to be a little bit more agile than just sticking to a path, because when you're on a path, you're on a path, and it's hard to get off that a lot of the time. So I think that's definitely a good tip. What would your key advice be, Andy, for those starting out in their journeys?
I definitely agree with Jess. It's important to stay curious, have like be interested, have an interest out of work, look at what emerging technologies, things that are exciting. But my biggest tip would be to not necessarily focus on the shiny, and make sure you grasp the fundamentals.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's fundamental aspects to programming that will cross languages, and they'll arm you well for your entire career, from an AI perspective through to like a more traditional software development perspective. I think just get a keen grip of the fundamentals would be my biggest. I wish I did it.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no, the basics are the basics, and they'll always be the basics, right? And if you try to reinvent the wheel and run before you can walk, then you'll only fail. So okay, that's good advice for those starting out. What about people who've been doing the job for a while? They're spitting out great code. They got promoted. They're a senior, and then boom, there's an opportunity to become a leader, to become a manager, to train, to coach, to inspire and mentor others. You're all in this path now. What advice would you give to people that are then making that transition from individual contributor to leader of a team or area? Jess, what would be kind of your top tip for people that are just kind of going on that journey?
Yeah, I would say definitely start off by analysing your skills first. I think when you transition into more of the leadership role, you have to identify your skills and what you want to improve on. Make a list, do a SWOT analysis on yourself, and just keep focusing on improving. And I think another big thing is, once you're in that area, ensure you're asking for constant feedback from people, because I think that's one of the biggest ways we can improve going forward. Is we can all do our jobs and think we're doing well, but if we're not asking for feedback on how we can potentially improve, whether it's meetings or presentations or just general one-to-ones with engineers, just constantly ask for feedback, and that's how you can get better at your job.
Yeah, it's often a case that you don't know what you don't know. Like you need to ask people for feedback and ask people for constructive feedback. Because if you just say, hey, how am I doing? Yeah, you're doing amazing. Everybody's going to say that to you. But if you ask, hey, can you tell me what was good about what I did? Okay, great. And what could be better about what I did? What should I start doing, which I'm not doing? What should I continue doing, which I'm already doing? What should I stop doing, which I'm doing at the moment? By asking those really good questions, that will allow you to become a lot more effective as a leader. Absolutely. And Mike, what advice would you give for people that are looking to step up and become a guide to others?
I think the first thing is just trying to make sure it's the right thing for you, because like people management isn't for everybody.
Absolutely.
Because obviously with most companies you'll find that there's like a more technical route and a more people management side.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of understanding like the people side is for you. So I think the key thing is maybe to talk to other people in the industry, people within your own business and that kind of thing, and maybe even like have some like shadowing opportunities to make sure like the kind of things that you'll be doing in that role is relevant to like what you want to try and achieve within your career. So it's something that I did myself, and it kind of proved that even though I do love the technical side, I do love the people side probably a little bit more. So I index more to that element, and I think it's just kind of key to make sure that is the right thing. And I guess it's almost like not being afraid to almost like make that jump. And as we said before, you can swap and change as well. Like you're not always fixed in that position, and you can try something. It doesn't work out for you, you can always change back.
Yeah.
But yeah, just make sure it's the right thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, and it doesn't need to be. You can be a great individual contributor and have an amazing career. You don't need to become a people leader. But for those that want to, hopefully those nuggets are helpful. Let's say those people have taken that advice. Suddenly they're incredible leaders, and the next step is, boom, they need to start building out their teams. They need to start hiring people. They need to start building culture and developing trust amongst their employees. What wisdom would you give to people who are looking to hire, who are looking to interview, bring on board talent, train them, keep them, retain them, keep them happy, keep them productive, keep them motivated? What hiring insights would you each share? What would you say, Andy?
I think with COVID, we're all working much more remotely now. So I think one thing would be personally, I think you should look to broaden what the markets you hire in and the talent pool.
Yeah.
Don't just focus at hiring sort of London-centric or Manchester-centric or wherever your offices are, or UK-centric. Yeah. Open it up globally. We've done that at Tangent, and we've hired some absolutely fantastic members of staff that we'd struggled to find in the UK with the market here. And then fostering remote culture is hard. It's so much harder than face-to-face. Yeah. So you need to look at how you can utilize, obviously, Teams calls and online socials. And it's also important to fly people all over from wherever they may be in the world to have face-to-face time with people, either at conferences or the Christmas party. And that's something we do as well. We fly over all of our staff for the Christmas party because we think it's important.
Of course, that's absolutely. I mean, those coffee boiler room chats are just as important as the formal one-to-ones, right? So you in hearts and not just minds. But yeah, I mean, that's good advice. If you're gonna want to hire, don't just limit yourself to a geographical region. Consider remote and get the best person in the country, in the world, not just somebody 45 minutes down the road. What's your tips? What would your key nuggets of wisdom be for those looking to hire and scale their teams?
I think Andy's just stolen all my points, to be honest. I think like when hiring teams, I think like one of the main things, especially like what I look for is kind of making sure people have got like a good growth mindset. Yeah. So when you're building the teams, it's kind of giving them the opportunity to expand on themselves and like innovate and everything. And it's kind of like maintaining that culture of like rather being like sort of rigid and like everything needs to fit within a box, and making sure you're getting people in who are kind of happy to explore new avenues and try different tools and technologies and that kind of thing, because that can like really like augment the business, I guess, moving forward. Yeah,
I mean that's the big thing for me. Technical skills, they can be taught, but that drive and ambition and willingness to grow and learn and do and have and become and give and share more. That is the difference, right, between an A-lister, 10x coder and somebody else. Jess, what would be your advice to those looking to hire and build out their squads?
Same as sort of what's already been said, but other than that, I think another big important factor is company culture. When we're looking for people, we need to identify our company culture first, how we work, how we want to move forward, what our next plans are, and ensure that we're hiring people who align with our future plans, because that's how we're going to have people who want to scale up with us and, want to build this fantastic future with the company and enjoy the people around us and enjoy the way we work as a company and all the company culture. So I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, culture is important. I think it's important to not just think culture fit, but also think culture add. How can that person bring something to the table, as opposed to just looking for like the same background all the time. Otherwise you just get a team of straight white guys, and that's often like 90% of the problem a lot of the time. No diversity of thought, opinion, and as a result the product looks like the same because it's being developed by the same kind of mindset. All right, so let's flip that to finish off. What about on the candidate journey? Rather than advice for those looking to hire, what about advice for those looking to get a job? If we started with CVs, perhaps that is the stages of getting a job are, the point of a CV is to get an interview, and the point of an interview is to get the job. So if we broke it down to those core fundamentals and first principles, if we start with CVs, you've all reviewed lots of CVs when you have people interviewing for you and wanting to work at your companies. What do you think makes a good CV? What advice would you give to people preparing resumes? What are the red flags to look out for? What are the mistakes to make? Let's start with yourself. What advice would you give when putting together a resume?
I think the main advice I'd give is to tailor it to the job that you're applying for.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're looking for like set skills and experience and that kind of thing. So a generic CV just kind of doesn't wash with me personally. I think it kind of shows that they're interested in the role. They've done a bit of research as well, and it kind of highlights the key things that you might be looking for, and maybe even touching on some of those I guess the things which are outside the box that you want to try and bring in as well, that culture add that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really take that long to kind of like tweak a few things, add a few metrics in there to kind of say like what are the key results that you fed into and that kind of thing. And I think that's probably the key bit of advice from me.
Such a small thing, but if you're applying for a property company and you previously worked in property, then talk about that. Have a sentence at the top of your CV which discusses how you love that industry, that sector, and that's what you want to do more. So yeah, definitely good pearls of wisdom. Andy, what would your kind of key CV tips be?
I think the opening paragraph is important. You want to show you're passionate, enthusiastic, like all of those soft skills around you as a person.
Yeah.
I think having a mixture of skills, both soft and technical, are also important. So, like showing what tech stacks you've worked with, but also sharing the fact that you're a good communicator or you've got experience with documentation, whatever it might be. And lastly, I think experience is key. And if you don't have experience, so say, for example, you're a junior coming into a role and you're looking for a first role, then projects, do some projects, show some case studies, put some GitHub repos on your CV.
Yes.
Show that you're doing stuff to kind of outside of hours to create that experience for yourself, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fake experience. Obviously, that's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about side projects, hustles, independent work. That sort of thing will separate you from other graduates in that situation that haven't got the experience. So that's really important. And also, people that are good at what they do, they just do it for the fun of it rather than having to do it because of work. I mean, even if they're not getting paid, and if they're working on something exciting, something interesting, something topical, and you can get that on your CV, then that will definitely make you stand out. What would your advice be, Jess, when it comes to resumes?
Yes, I think, we're all really good at highlighting our skills and, what we can sell ourselves on. But I think it's really important to focus on our actual achievements as well. So have a few direct achievements in there, how you've helped build, what types of projects you've built, and, the kind of people you've worked with, or any kind of other missions that you've aligned with. Again, this can even be outside skills, so sort of side projects you do, etc., any courses you've done. And yeah, I think another thing that's really important as well in the opening paragraph, just show a bit of your personality as well. Show who you are as a person. Like, at the end of the day, we're hiring people. We're not just hiring you, for your skills. Like, most people in tech have, a standard set of skills. So, show a bit of your personality, show what you're about.
That's a really good point. There's so many situations I can tell you over the years when I've got somebody a job through my recruitment agency because that person put on their CV that they're like Manchester United Football Club, and the hiring manager did as well, and that started the conversation. I don't really follow football. I don't know if that's a good example to use, but hobbies, interests, personality, something that separates you from just a piece of paper. We've got 5 minutes left, so let's finish off with interview advice. Getting the CV gets you the interview, then how do you get the job? What can be your number one tip when people are going to interview? You must have interviewed a lot of people. You must have red flags, things that you hate to see, things that you love to see. What's important to you when people are interviewing? Andy, what's your point of view?
I think you should remember that the hiring manager wants you to succeed.
Yeah.
So the person that's interviewing you wants you to be the best candidate, wants you to be the right person for the role, wants you to get the job as much as you do. So be confident, go in there, be brave, try and highlight the things you've achieved and be proud of it. And I think that will show through. Yeah,
absolutely. What would your take be?
It's something I've spoken about before with like sort of juniors entering the industry, and it's around like the idea of like interviewing the interviewer. So in other words, bringing like a good list of questions to ask them, and I guess in a way tailoring it so it's not kind of things that you could find out quite easily on the internet. It's the things that you really want to know about yourself. So like, what are the career paths for me, and like what's a day-to-day look like in the team, and like what are the kind of people you'll be working with, and like really digging into the business and kind of projects you might be working on. So sort of the information that's not publicly available, because it kind of shows that you're really delving into the role and you want to know more. And like generally speaking, it will open up like a nice informal conversation with them. And again, it comes down to like Jess was saying there around bringing out that personality of the individual and bringing that into the interview, and just makes it a bit easier to manage, I think.
It just shows that you care, doesn't it? I mean, if you look up the company on Google News or look at the hiring manager's LinkedIn page and you went to the same university, it's something to reference. It's a great point of discussion, and it really does help separate you from the masses that don't do that sort of thing. Cool. And finishes off, Jessica, what's your top tip for interviews?
I would say, just as much as showing interest, go back to the original job spec and, how can you show that you're right for this role? Look at the different attributes on that job specification and think about, the examples and the advantages and everything that you can bring to that workplace based on the job spec. I think that's a really important thing to remember.
Yeah, keep it specific. Don't just write a CV for the sake of writing a CV. Look at the job description, customize that to your resume, tweak it, change it, and make them read. They wrote the JD a lot of the time, so if they're reading the CV and they're seeing words that are reflecting back to them that you've taken the time to read that, pay attention to it, and care, then that's going to come forth in the interview as well. Cool. All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful, useful for all of the software engineers, tech leaders, etc. watching the show. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for coming on. Great to get your perspectives, your opinions into what's happening in the world of tech, the future, and top tips as well. For those watching, listening, you know what to do with the follow buttons and all of that stuff. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., etc. And I'll see you in the next episode.
The Alfie Whattam Podcast.
Imagine if you were able to hire the next Elon Musk. Or if you got a job at Facebook, back when it was just a startup. Well, these people and these opportunities, they are still out there, and we have access to them. Access to all of them. At Alpha Technology, we specialise in software development recruitment across London and the UK. From React to Java to C# and more. We represent the best front-end, back-end, and full-stack engineers on the market. This includes top developers from Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and more. Our clients operate across AI, blockchain, VR, AR, fintech, edtech, health tech, and more. From startups to global enterprises and everything in between. But Alpha isn't just a recruitment agency. We are also a tech community. We host podcasts, run meetup events, and lead ED&I initiatives, supporting women in technology, BAME individuals, and the Tech for Good ecosystem. So, if you're a company looking to hire software engineers, or if you're a developer open to new opportunities yourself, then we are here to help. Alpha Technology. Recruiting for the future.